From Oscar Steakhouse, inside the Plaza Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas, you're on the corner of Main Street. Welcome to the only podcast produced by and recorded in the Las Vegas Hotel Casino. From gaming to dining to entertainment to sports to Vegas history, this is the place to be for the inside scoop, because this is the place to be downtown. Now, here's Plaza CEO Jonathan Jossel.
Okay, welcome back, everybody, to On the Corner of Main Street. We're live. We have a very special guest today, episode number 5. It's episode, hold on, a lot of fives. Episode number 140 of the Plaza Pod-ish, but it's episode number 5 for Mr. Scott Robin of Vital Vegas. Welcome back.
Thanks for having me back.
But it's episode 1 with Scott, where there is all this fancy equipment that we introduced a couple of episodes ago, and now we're like professional and all grown up, and people can actually see us, and they can see your wonderful hair and how handsome you are. He's single, ladies, if anyone's watching or listening, single and available.
I'm
Scott
letting
Robin.
the gray come out, so now those ladies are talking to me, but it's because I'm like their safe grandpa.
You're not threatening anymore.
It took an ugly turn.
boy.
Yeah.
Started out quickly.
But you've probably been here for 15 episodes. I mean, you're here for most of the dinner series, so...
That's right.
We just
You
had
know,
Scott here last
yeah.
week at the dinner series.
But when Oscar's talking, there really isn't quite as much value as when I get to talk, so I appreciate you having me back.
Scott likes to be the star of the show. But anyway, we're very honored to have you back here. Scott is more well known as Vital Vegas. Some would say the knower of all things of Las Vegas. He does know a lot. I mean, he put out a tweet about the Plaza yesterday that was frankly more knowledgeable than me.
I'm hoping we can talk about that.
We'll get there. But actually...
Because no subject is off limits on the Plaza podcast.
We try
That's
to
one of
do
the
that.
things that makes it great, award-winning, high-level engagement from your listeners and now your viewers. That's one of the things that people love about it.
And hopefully now all the cameras will be like, wow, an extra award for being able to see us. Do we have like a bird's eye view camera also, though, or is it just one's looking straight at us?
Just single cameras. For you.
Maybe we should think about one day having like a bird's eye, so like it's a group conversation.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway.
Because this is unnerving, because I play to the camera. Like when I'm on the local news, if I do an interview, I'm kind of talking to the host, but mostly I'm just talking to the
And
camera.
now we have Courtney here bringing us. What is this,
cheating out.
Courtney?
Oh, just a nice Diet Peps?
This is a diet, thank you.
Captain and
Oh,
Coke.
she even remembers my drink.
That's pretty good.
You could do that as a courtesy as well.
What are you
even though
doing?
I don't, huh?
What are you doing?
See, on a regular podcast, I would just be drinking, but now I have to be conscious
You're being
of
watched.
if I dribble or.
All right, well, while he's trying to figure out this Diet Pepsi here,
Yeah.
this is our 5-year anniversary of the Plaza podcast. Our podcast came out, by the time this airs, it'll be a couple days later, but February 11th, 2020 was our first episode that we've, I guess, published.
Oh, it was the first one we published. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is interesting. 5 years of doing this podcast. I can't believe it. Congratulations to you and the Plaza team. And I guess honorable shout out to Lisa Malmid. Of
course.
At the Fountain
Of course.
Blue for being the original with me and you to do this. It was actually Lisa and I who started it, to be fair.
It was. Do you remember that original recording
Yes,
you guys
yeah,
did
on
in
her
the...
cell phone on my desk, and it fell off mid-podcast, and we both laughed about it. And that's how we realized if we were going to do this, we had to elevate our game a little bit. But anyway, congratulations to the Plaza on the Corner of Main Street team for surviving, or not even surviving, but continuing to put out content for 5 years, because that is the toughest part of doing a podcast,
Right.
is the content. I mean, it takes time, and yeah, we have to sit here and talk, but you got to constantly have content, and you got to constantly organize guests. And luckily, we have Scott, who, if we have any milestones, we could just keep inviting him back because people seem to like him and listen to him.
And
why don't they
I-
like you, but they listen to you?
Thank you. Wait, what? No, I can actually say all the things that you can't because you're too modest to say about the. It's amazing that any podcast lasts 5 years. It is doubly amazing that it is a podcast produced in a casino by a casino with an actual high-ranking executive of that casino. All those things are impossible. It's impossible to just do a podcast for 5 years. I haven't done an episode in 6 months.
Right.
Because I bore the hell out of myself when I'm just sitting talking to a mic. When I'm talking to you guys, I'm fascinating. But so it's congratulations on multiple levels, genuinely, because a lot of folks have been doing Vegas podcasts for 10 years, 15 years. this is just a different level. So
we-
really kudos to the whole team, and you're still kind of upping your game. because
Right.
You could just sit on your laurels, but going to the next level means you understand the value of it. You've seen value in it. Unfortunately, others aren't doing it, but that's great for you guys. I thought Win would do the next one. We actually talked about doing one in there because they have this fancy.
We being you
podcast.
and the Win.
Yeah.
Someone
they
at
were
the
going to
Win?
be like, could you, maybe you could be the host or facilitate the pod. And I'm like, I'd love to do that. They have a
Yeah.
beautiful studio, all the high-tech cameras and microphones and all that. I don't even know what they do there.
Well, I wasn't going to talk about that, but now we will. You brought it up. I think there's something special about the fact that we're private. It's just us, and we can kind of be more open and, fluid with the conversation. And I think a lot of public or bigger organizations would be uncomfortable to maybe talk about certain things. And my PR lady does not like the podcast always because I release things on the podcast that she had a plan to release over time. But this is why it's special, and we're able to do it. And I think for other companies as well, it might just be a time commitment that they don't want to put into it. Because it's easy. Everyone can start a podcast. I think everyone has started a podcast at some point in their life. But to keep it going for 5 years and 140 episodes is a big thing. And I will say that today we put out some questions. Sarah in marketing, shout out Sarah sitting over there. We put out a Q&A, not a Q&A, just a Q, asking people for questions. And
We
we're
got
going to
the
do
A.
the A.
Yeah.
And we took about a handful of those questions. We're going to answer them at the end of the episode. But to talk about something you touched on, the other night I walked in here, and it's amazing to me how many people I talk to that listen to this podcast, that we've met, that come here, that go to see the show at Mavericks downstairs, or they come to Oscars, or they go somewhere because of this podcast. The other night there was a gentleman, and he'll know I'm talking about him shortly, but he worked at Disney for 35 years. He listens to our podcast, and I'm going to Disneyland with my kids next week, and he said he's listened to all of our episodes and ended up being a great contact for me at Disney. And so for me, I'm monetizing it in an indirect way. It's wonderful. It's really cool to meet people every day in this building that listen to this podcast. So that alone is a reason to keep doing it and keep upping our game. And people wanted to see cameras, we added in cameras. And
I think what's important too is to go back. You haven't really, in any of the episodes, shied away from a tough question that's come from a guest or anything that's been going on. You've been pretty much open and honest with everything that's been going on, right? That you can answer, as well as we haven't had
full
to.
disclosure. We used to edit the episodes. We really can't edit them anymore with the cameras. I mean, we used to be.
We can, but then I'll be facing this way, and then I'll be facing that way after the question. right?
The video won't flow with the. No, we used to edit them. Remember in the early
Yeah, but
days.
there wasn't a lot of editing.
No, I
was,
know.
I think it was more us trying to figure out how to do a podcast that we edited.
Yeah, that's true.
Just going back to when we did the Billy Walters episode, and I had it written down that he was the Michael Jordan of sports betting, and then just
Did I let
called
you
him-
change? Did I let you edit that out? That was my
you
favorite
didn't let
blooper.
me. I did it anyway.
Oh, that
I
was
did it
my
anyway,
favorite blooper.
but-
So I told him, do not mess up the intro. He gets a little nervous at the start of the episode, and he introduces the guests.
I've
So
edited those plenty of times.
Billy Walters, he was going to just introduce as the Michael Jordan of sports betting, which Billy Walters is the Michael Jordan of sports. Did you listen to that episode?
Yes.
Amazing guest, fascinating guest. Anyway, Gary introduces him as the Michael Jackson of sports betting.
Right. Yep.
That still works, technically.
Not in that context, but
Maybe like 20 years ago it would have worked.
Well,
Not so much
I think that aspect of the show, you walk it's very delicate because there's some people you can't. It's not hard hitting journalism, right? So your last guest, props to you because he is a fan of Steve Wynn. He will always be in the Steve Wynn camp. And you said at some point during the interview, you mentioned this before his downfall. Like that in another podcast that would never have even come up. And Billy Walters went to jail.
Right.
So you could go into a kind of going after him for insider trading or whatever it was. But you have a way of making those guests feel comfortable, and nobody thinks there's going to be any big gotcha or big reveal, but it doesn't really matter because it's still a genuine conversation. People can compartmentalize, some of these folks don't, if you have Shelley Berkeley on, there's a lot of stuff you could go into that might be awkward for her, but that's not the job of what you do. And the other thing you don't do that I love is you don't really promote very much.
No.
You'll mention things that are coming up, but any other corporate podcast is all about selling and marketing and having to make every
But we will
positive spin on everything.
we'll equally promote other things happening as well. We're okay with that too. Interestingly enough, the episode you were just talking about, Barry Shear, was Gary's favorite episode ever.
My favorite episode, yeah.
Of all the 140, that was your favorite.
I think
it probably
that
was one. He
that
was excellent.
My top three, I thought about this, was Barry, Alex, and then Billy Walters.
Alex
Kamanigian. Yeah.
There's some obvious omissions.
Five
On your
Vital
list.
Vegases.
I had 5, and not a single one. If I go to jail, would that? I'd be up for that.
You need
If
to
I
do
were-
more. You need to do more questionable things before we can.
Oh,
put
I'm
you-
doing a
Well,
lot
you've
of
been-
questionable
You've been
things.
86th from a few casinos.
Yeah,
so that's
But
good.
the conversation
Just the
about
one.
Fremont was a really good conversation. I think that was episode 3 with you about the different things and about the.
That's actually how the Barry Shear episode came about, because
Really?
Oliver Lover had reached out to him for the history of Fremont Street Experience, and Barry was working down here in the 80s and 90s, and that's how Oliver connected me. That's why Oliver was a co-host on that episode with us. Those are great episodes, and I have to say, I still like getting comments from people when they hear the Freddie Glussman episode from Pierre. I was like, what the hell was that? And you weren't in that one, so I can't
No,
say that was
no.
our favorite, because you weren't there for that, but that was pretty funny. Anyway, moving on. So the podcast is 5 years old.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. And here it is, everybody. The lovely Courtney is now bringing me. I didn't realize it was going to take so long, but only joking.
Courtney can do
Where's
anything.
Where's the salt? The salt
You got to talk into the mic, Courtney. We're keeping this in the episode.
Well-
so.
Thank you.
Everybody that can see this is called the Downtown Dill. It's the famous cocktail from the Downtown Cocktail Room that I used to drink in 2007, 2008, 2009 when I first moved here. And in honor of the Downtown Cocktail Room closing down in December, 2 months ago, I asked Courtney and Chelsea, who's not here, Chelsea, the bartender at Oscars that everyone knows, to put this on the menu here at Oscars. So the Downtown Dill is an amazing cocktail. Cheers to the podcast.
Cheers.
5 years in. Thank you.
Yes.
That is a great homage to the Downtown Cocktail Room.
Very good, Courtney. Very good.
You nailed it.
Very
Yeah,
good.
there's a lot
And
of
we've talked
changes
about
going
for
on.
5 years sitting down and having cocktails during this
Oh, I
podcast.
am.
This is the first one you've ever had.
Oh, you know who was a great guest? Tim Poster.
Yes,
Tim Poster was
yep.
a great guest. Those stories he had from the Golden Nugget were excellent. Anyway, so enough about the podcast. It's 5 years old. Congratulations. Let's move on. Scott, how have you been? What's news?
Great. It's an interesting time in Vegas. We're in the middle of what I think is a surprising turn of events for a lot of folks in the industry, in that it's quite slow, and it looks like it's going to be slower than expected for Super Bowl weekend. Even into March, it's looking like the hotel rates are very low. So there's a whole discussion about, does it mean anything that it's been 6 months of flat gaming revenue? Is there a pause? Is there what's happening?
There's two parts I'd like to ask. I'll come back to that in a second. But we did have an excellent 2024 for us at the Plazas, our best year yet. That said, there was other improvements and things that went into that. I will say this is the slowest Super Bowl we've ever had. In my 17 years here, I can't remember a slower Super Bowl. I don't know what's going on. I don't have a good finger on the pulse. Everyone's saying, well, it's hard because last year was... Sarah, you look nervous when I said that. I mean, it happens. Last year was an excellent Super Bowl because it was in Las Vegas, but that's not a good excuse because the year before that was still amazing weekend. And
I keep telling folks, like, hosting it was icing on the cake, but
Yeah.
Super Bowl is always big in Vegas, and it really doesn't have to do with what teams are playing. Like folks on Twitter, the two main responses were, "Don't care about these teams." I'm like, that seems irrelevant to me. That might be true, but I don't think people
Don't say it to Gary.
change plans.
He's a big Eagles fan.
So
but yes.
this podcast will drop in about a week or so from when we're recording this. So I'd
After.
just like to say congratulations to the Philadelphia Eagles on their second Super Bowl victory.
Taylor's team. We should bet. It's because I know
team.
everything. I have the crystal
Okay.
ball. So it's the other team. I don't know their name, but
They
it's
win.
the Taylor
It's the other
Swift
team?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Fair enough.
But so it's irrespective of who's playing or the game itself. It's always big in Vegas to go for the Super Bowl because it's the experience, right?
Yeah.
The other comment that is the through line of the conversation is nickel and diming. They've priced me out. I can't afford whatever. Even with the lower room rates, apparently, that impression, I think it's a big deal. that people are saying it. So they've always said it to me because I've always been the one who's like, where did this fee come from or whatever. I get people riled up about that. But I think beyond that, the conversation seems to be consistently, I'm not coming. And it's not because I'm Canadian and because Trump's doing something like that. That enters the conversation for sure. But it's really very much about, I'm tired of getting kicked for this cocktail and this parking and these other things. And I've been screaming about it for years, but it feels like that pain point might be here.
Yeah, no, I've had a friend downtown who's been screaming about this for 2 years. He operates a casino and saying it's coming, and it didn't come. He might be right this time. He called me yesterday. He said it's here, it's happening this time. There's an element of everything can explain in, a slow Super Bowl doesn't mean it's happening, right? It's a slower year. There could be many variables. There's things in politics. There's fires in California. Whatever it could be, there's other explanations for certain one-off events. But you mentioned 6 months of declining gaming revenue on the Strip. iGaming is certainly a factor within that. It's not the regional gaming, but iGaming is a factor. And then,
What about sports betting? I mean,
yeah,
now if you go to watch an NFL game, right, there's 15 commercials in between series of every type of DraftKings or anybody else. So, and now that the NFL is like involved with that, is there a need to come to Las Vegas for a casual fan to come here to bet on the Super Bowl, there was 3-4 years ago?
The answer was always that would happen, and that would be sort of a gateway to more people coming to Las Vegas, because ultimately they want to come to the Mecca, the place where it's all happening. And that was the case up until, and I think it'll go back to, I don't think that's the issue.
Okay.
I think you might be touching on it. I think you might be touching on the real issue, which is, has Las Vegas just become too expensive for the average person? And it's not even expensive, not a value proposition. I went to a steakhouse the other night, and a bottle of water was $12, and a cocktail was $26. And at some point, you wonder who wants to pay that and feel good about it, no matter how good the bottle of water is, or the cocktail, because the bottle of water is pretty consistent. It just gets to the point where you start to question, have we gone too far? And I don't know if we have gone too far, if that's where we are, but when I read the comments, and you've obviously got your finger on the pulse with the public, it wouldn't surprise me if that was a common theme, whether it's the airfare is too expensive. And maybe it's tough for the downtown to be the alternative, because what ends up happening, as you're seeing now, is the Strip just drops their rates. So now on the Super Bowl, you can stay center Strip for $135. That's insane. That just doesn't exist normally. So maybe it is that. Maybe that is the problem. And I think it's too early to say it's here or the big shift has happened. We'll see, obviously, in a couple of weeks. But certainly Super Bowl is an ominous indicator. And I haven't seen it like this. Did you just tweet about Cirque du Soleil's doing a lot of layoffs?
Yeah,
there was the restaurant group.
No, it was Cirque. It was dozens of people. They're reorganizing.
Yeah.
So it's not the performers, it's not the techs, it's a corporate restructuring, because they have a lot of kind of silos and redundancies. I always thought, because I had heard about this happening before, that they had already done this kind of reassessment of the corporate structure, but they're definitely doing it now. I got the memo that was circulated internally.
The Dow?
The what?
You say Dow?
No,
Oh,
not that
sorry,
I know of.
sorry. They're doing it now.
Yeah,
they're doing it now.
Yeah, they're doing it now, and literally like different, reporting structure, different kind of like, and of course PRs, marketing, those folks all go first. But yeah, it's a substantial.
Well,
I
actually,
don't know that that's related, because Circus had problems forever. I mean, they shut down during the pandemic.
To be clear, not Cirque du Soleil.
Yeah, Cirque du Soleil.
You said circus, yeah.
No, Cirque. I might have said Cirque is. I don't know. Cirque was.
Yeah.
But I also would not big picture discount the idea of convenience, because there's another thing that I was talking about. As gambling has become legal across the country, the ease of betting on your phone, going to your local casino. Vegas had a monopoly, right? So it doesn't happen overnight that people change their habits or patterns, but over time, if in combination with the nickel and diming, not a value destination, I can't go with my 10 male friends because you're going to pay thousands of dollars for dinner, so we're not going for the Super Bowl. We're going to have a party at our neighbor's house and go to the local casino or whatever. I think those factors I call it commoditization because it means Vegas becomes less distinct from the experience you can have at your local casino, right? Both of those things. And I kept saying, like, well, 1 month you can't tell anything. You can't really tell anything from 3 months. When you hit a half a year, then you start looking at kind of like what are the factors.
Yeah,
here.
this is more of a trend.
Yeah.
Well,
I think it's big for everybody downtown too. I think people come downtown as an alternative to the Strip, but if Vegas as a whole, as a destination, if that perception has changed that much, I used to hear griping, but now it's a flood.
all they talk about.
Yeah, it really is.
Although social media is just full of negative comments. But I'll tell you something funny. You're a fan of Amy Saunders from Miss Mavericks, Misbehaving. I know you are.
Yeah.
And by the way, little piece of information for the podcast. We are so in love with Mavericks and the show that the Plaza has actually invested in the show. So we're now partners in it because I think it's got such great potential and it's doing so well here and it's creating so much buzz. We wanted to make it a part of everything we do. So the other night, the dinner series, you would have seen the one girl walking through. The other night, a pickleball tournament, we had an act up there. We want to make it a part of everything we do. That's not what I'm...
Wow.
But why I'm talking about that...
So they can afford costumes now.
They
can put clothes on.
The show is doing fantastic, and it's a great show, and it's doing well. So we're optimistic about finally having a show here that works. But the reason I brought that up is because I'm very proud of our investment in it. But she has an angle that is, come downtown, come see Mavericks, free parking, no fees, cheap drinks, cheap peanuts. Oh, and by the way, there's a great show. And she said that on the call the other day. And I thought that's genius because, to your point, that's what people are so sick of. And she obviously has a good feeling for what's happening in the market. And that was her, like, that's our angle. Those four things. Oh, and by the way, you're going to see a great show. Right. And it is a great show. But those are the things that I guess people are really tired of, and she wants to double down on that message, and it was pretty interesting to me.
And there are folks that are definitely, they are going in that direction. Downtown Grand, under the former GM, was definitely going in that direction. Silver Sevens, I've been talking to the folks over there, and they definitely get the minimums on these. They're doing hybrid tables, but the minimums are going down to $3. So. And I've seen activity there that I did not see on the live games when they were $10 or whatever they were. They were still inexpensive, but there's Oyo is another one. Like all these kind of just off strip, kind of mix of locals and tourists. Definitely like those deals where South Point always does very well, and it's value driven.
Always.
They're
the best.
I don't know what you do on the strip because. To pay for that space, to pay for a Caspian's, you can't do a $6 cocktail. It's just not possible. So you're going to get a $24, $26, $28 cocktail because something's got to pay for the building, for the live entertainment. They're not being subsidized by the casino anymore, so that has all changed. So I think, we've talked about this before, that Vegas suffers from a comparison to its former self, where it was pretty straightforward that if you gamble, that covers the expense of everything else. But that just is not the case now. Yeah. Whether it's a third party or an internally managed venue, you still have to, there's rent, there's hard costs to running a business, and it's unrealistic.
Why don't we add like an economic update to our podcast? Like in the first couple of minutes, we'll do an update on what's happening in the market. By the way, where am I looking when I do this, Sarah? Am I looking in the right place? I'm looking at that one. Yeah, I've been looking. See, now you're gonna have a side profile of me the whole time.
That's what I'm saying.
I didn't know which one I was looking at. Okay, it's okay. Now I know.
Look at this one too, but that's your main camera.
I've been looking at the wrong camera.
2, 3.
No,
Yeah,
and
this
Scott.
This is Gary's cam.
I've been looking at Gary's cam. Shoo. Okay.
Okay.
Anyway, but that's okay. Don't worry. You got my side profile. Hi, everyone. All right, but no, I think Scott, we could definitely do. There he is. We could definitely do a little bit of an update because it'll be interesting to see over the next couple of months if this is really. Some people have been saying it's been coming for 2 years and it never materialized. And maybe it's a blip. Maybe things go back. We'll see pretty quickly. But yeah, Super Bowl is alarming. By the time you're listening to this, you would have seen. It's the lowest rates I remember seeing at a hotel, downtown or strip, for a Super Bowl, and we're open about that. But our watch parties have been selling really well, which is interesting because where are those people staying if they're not staying with us?
Yeah, I mean that's we have
over 1,200 people watching the game here.
Wow,
which is pretty amazing. So
and we're pacing right on par with where we were last year.
Yeah, with it being in town.
Right, exactly.
Where will you watch the game?
I don't even know what it is.
Oh, that's right.
I don't know which sport. I'm going to avoid any place.
By the way,
with
the A's is
TVs.
happening.
Oh, that'd be great to talk about.
It's
The A's
happening.
definitely are not happening under the current ownership. Why do you think it's happening?
I just think it's going to happen.
Well, thinking and opinions are great. Sources are better.
Your sources are saying it's not going to happen?
No, it's an imaginary. It's a pipe dream. It is. They put out some more renderings of the thing that's not happening. It's complicated, but for the most part, it comes down to paying for it.
Yeah, of course.
Shockingly, right? It is. There's really no indication that that the bulk of the cost of the ballpark that there's a source for that financing. John Fisher and his family they're very wealthy. Wealthy people don't cash out stock to build money-losing enterprises. There's no rescue coming. There's $300 million construction loan, fraction of what it's going to cost. There's $350 million from taxpayers. That's probably a third of what this thing is going to cost. So John Fisher, no other investors are biting because he's overvalued the team. Sacramento is wooing them. Bally's Corp is a big part of this. They have no resources to do anything on the site. So that means they have to find a new resort partner, and the A's are going to have to pay for all that infrastructure if they're building a ballpark there.
Yeah.
So we're talking about a cost that was $1.5 billion. Now people are saying it's 1.7. I'm saying it's 2 or over, $2 billion. John Fisher is not going to put a penny into this thing. He has a history of doing this. The Seminoles are wooing him in Sacramento. If he sells the team, they might come to Vegas, but it's not going to be John Fisher's A's.
Okay, that's a good. That's a fair disclosure. So it may happen, but it may not be under that kind of ownership as your prediction.
Because a new owner might find that
Yeah.
$350 million. I'm sure it can just be. I mean, now it can't be transferred, but that would be an easy transfer.
Yeah.
You're not going to get more taxpayer dollars because we were already screaming and kicking about that, right? But a wealthy person who can buy the team for $2 billion is going to have the resources to take it anywhere they want. Maybe even Oakland. Who knows? New owner.
I will say, I heard it's happening. But they didn't just say that it wasn't under different ownership or not. So I don't know about that. But I believe it will happen in that location. I believe the NBA will happen.
At Rio?
The way that the city's going, we're going to need all these developments
Yeah.
to keep filling things up.
But I have a question about that. So, if you put a baseball park here and you bring another team, so you're not developing the team. Like the Knights came in, they had the groundswell of the Las Vegas community, did amazing the first year, and that lasts for so long. The Raiders, I feel like anytime that I've gone to the game, that 50-60% of the people that fill that stadium are out of town.
Probably
So how do
more.
you do a baseball stadium where you have to play 92 games a year? Same with basketball.
Isn't it 82?
Yeah, it's
82, yeah, 160.
Oh, home games. Home
games.
Yeah.
Yep.
So how do you do that with not having that support locally? And then how do you do that as you're transferring the team from one city to
He's got his
another?
Golden Knights hat on over there.
And who travels? Is there a comparable fan base that travels to baseball like they do to football?
Well, football is
It-
8
it's-
games versus 92.
Yeah,
Right,
it's
that's the thing is if you're a Broncos fan for football, you come to Vegas, at least once a year to come to see them play. You got other teams that come in, but for 82 games, that's a lot to try to hope.
Yeah.
And the folks you would think would benefit the most don't really care. MGM has all those resorts right around the site. They don't care. Caesars doesn't. They don't care. It's not going to move the needle. The numbers that have been floated are absurd. 33,000 people for a team that was drawing 6,000 in Oakland. It's asinine. So the whole
mentioned-
thing falls apart except for the cheerleaders at the LVCVA saying it's happening and the A's saying it's happening, and they just keep filing paperwork. But I did a spoof of it on my site where I just basically the letter from the A's just said I'm good for it, and every other entity that's saying he's good for it, that's not.
Maybe we have to have
financing.
someone from the A's on the podcast.
Oh, they invited me to the construction companies are doing we're going to talk about vendors and how we're going to acquire all the building materials and all this stuff. They invited me, and I'm like, these are professional people. Like these are grown-ups. These are the best construction companies in the world, and they're falling for this BS too. So somebody must be getting paid.
Oh yeah.
For the renderings. I could do it. I've done it with AI in 5 minutes of similar quality, but somebody's getting paid for that. And it's like this narrative of it's moving forward. And the Review Journal is doing this. They're saying it. It's moving forward. They filed for another permit. They're moving ahead. Here's
All right, because you know nothing about sports. Let's change.
I know
gear.
Vegas.
You know Vegas. So
I was
you
on
mentioned
Fox Sports Radio the other night talking about this. I've been quoted in Sports Illustrated.
Oh, really?
because it's not, I don't have opinions about this. I mean, I kind of do, but they've been formed by people who are in the room, who are 1 degree of separation, who've been pitched by the team, who have met John Fisher, met the guy that got fired, the other guy who left, stepped down.
Yeah.
But all along the way, they've been saying this is not a serious person, this is not a serious organization, and they're full of it. And so I have found no evidence to the contrary other than people saying what you're saying of like, I just have a feeling.
it's going to happen.
Yeah, it feels like it should. Well,
No, I
guess.
understand. I appreciate that. Okay.
Yeah.
So you put out a tweet the other day with some real big news regarding MGM. You just touched on MGM. You mentioned their names.
Oh, yeah.
What exactly do you know? What are you talking about here?
Oh, the
Yeah.
hornbuckle thing? Well, I talk to a lot of people, and I share everything I hear. Unless
Irrespective of verification.
Well, right. I don't have to have verification to share something. If it's a rumor, if it's chatter. MGM, in this case, reached out to clarify that my tweet was inaccurate.
Oh, good.
So I have not retracted it or corrected it because I have pretty good sources. So I think ultimately, and the rumor was that he is retiring, that he's going to step down. And that has a domino effect for a lot of things like F1. I didn't even realize that until my source said, by the way, the guy from F1 left. Now, if you have the head of MGM, another really invested party in F1, now what happens? If there aren't as many advocates for F1 as there an opening, and of course in my world, I'm like, that's my opening to get rid of F1. But MGM, this is the first time I've actually talked to them in like an official capacity, and they clarified he's not retiring. So I guess his contract goes through 2026. So when I talk to folks in PR or corporate communications or whatever it is, I take everything kind of with a grain of salt because they need stability. So if there have been rumblings that the board isn't happy with Bill Hornbuckle, or if Barry Diller isn't happy with the direction of the company, the rumblings can very well be, we need to make a course correction, and Bill Hornbuckle is that course correction. He's not maybe doing what they want in the world of digital, So Barry Diller's he's all about digital and
This is just your speculation, or this is...
No, that's pretty well known. And Barry Diller is all about ROI. So the stock price it hasn't really moved over the past, it's gone up and down, but it's basically been flat for the past few years. So there's a lot of information that informs a rumor that Bill Hornbuckle could be out. So if you ask MGM, they say stability, he's not going anywhere. That's their answer. But I haven't corrected it because
you think you're still
rumor. Right. I don't, in this case, I'm still I'm weighing all the factors. But MGM is saying
enough.
he's not going, like they may not even have, that's the thing. It's like people who talk to me are in the room and others may not even have the information yet. So, and that happens so often because there have been literal denials of things and it'll happen a week later and it'll be confirmed. So I don't jump in and retract something immediately. I did with Sahara just as a courtesy, but it turned out I was right. I won the case. So ultimately I'm vindicated. But
wasn't it? Weren't you saying it was going to close down or was going to be sold? Something you were saying
that it could close because a liquidator had been asked to give an estimate for liquidation of all the physical assets. It could close. He said, "I've done this 30 years. Every situation where I've been asked for this estimate, an estimate of liquidation, the business has closed." So I write a story that's that says Sahara could close. Sahara's not happy. They sue
By the
me.
way, first you trash the Eagles. Now you're talking about Sahara. He loves Sahara. He goes to Chickies and Pete's. He's a big fan of the Sahara.
I
So-
loved Sahara. I was the only
That's
one
true. You-
talking about Sahara
Yeah, you-
on a consistent basis, how much I loved it. But this asshat, don't edit this out, Alex Morello, the asshat, he sues me because his feelings are hurt, and he loses. He pays $96,000 of my legal fees because he's just a butthurt billionaire.
Well, okay, thank you, Scott.
Thank
So
you.
we actually can't edit you out, but
Yes.
we aren't representing anything. This is the whole point of this podcast. We want people to look back in a decade or 2 decades and say, what was Las Vegas like during this time period? And this hopefully will tell the story of that time period, and that's why we do it. So thank you for sharing some of your insights and knowledge on.
I have a question.
Yes.
Related to this
Yeah.
that you probably know the answer to. So, the night I found out that I was not allowed to go to Sahara, I was using my Players Club card, and I had been, unbeknownst to me, I had been evicted. So, I took my Players Club card out. They said free T-shirt promotion. Take your card to the desk. So I took my card to the desk. And at that point, I was informed, sir, you've been evicted. You're going to have to leave the premises. So I didn't understand what was happening. I figured it was probably related to the lawsuit, but I enjoyed Sahara at the time. So I was walked out. So since then, people have referred to it as you were 86th, you were trespassed, you were evicted, like all that terminology. But they never read me any, like, I've always thought there was like, they read you this
They're
thing.
supposed to read you a trespass.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't think I'm trespassed. I think I was just booted.
Yeah, you're probably not. You probably would have to go back there, and then they would formally trespass you.
So if I went back, they would go through the formal process.
If they decided to.
What is eviction, though? I don't even know what that is.
Well, they're probably just asking you to leave the
Gotta
property.
leave. Yeah, that's it.
Well, if they're
there is an
asking, I've been
interesting-
kicked out of a lot of
no,
places,
the question
and I
you
go
should
back.
be
and
asking
it's
is, are you still entitled to your T-shirt?
yeah, what the hell?
Because there is an interesting question that's come up more recently, which was, if somebody's been 86 from a property, but they come back, and we don't catch them, and coming in, and then they gamble and they hit a taxable jackpot.
Yes,
Do you have to pay them the jackpot? And that became a big thing. And I was, of course, on the fence of absolutely not. How can you pay them? But then my favorite operator in town, on the subject, I won't mention him, said to me, no, you shouldn't do that. Just pay them and tell them to leave. Because one, if they lose the money, you don't want to have to deal with figuring out that you have to give them back that money. You're not going to give them back that money, so it's the right thing to do. But two, you spend so much time on paperwork and other things. Do you really want to go through the whole process of having to like re-86 them and figure out what to do with that jackpot? Just pay them the money and tell them to get out was his answer. But I think it's still up in the air as to which way the city's going to go on that. I don't think it's been decided. I can't remember if it has. I think
That's
right
a
now they're
great
leaving it as is.
question.
But if you've been 86, right now, if you've been 86 and you go back in and gamble in the place you're 86 from, I think
And you've been trespassed. You've been
thing.
read the
Same-
trespass.
Yeah.
Okay.
same thing.
So
You
Vegas
technically
Policy,
still have to
I
pay
think,
that
has been
jackpot.
kicked out of Resorts World. If he goes into Resorts World and wins a jackpot, they might not have to pay him.
They still
what
have
he
to pay
won.
him. Right now, they still have to pay him. I think what the casinos were what the industry was trying to change was that to say we don't have to pay people that have been 86. I don't know I don't think it's changed yet. If it is going to change, that's still up in the air. But better not to go to the places you're 86 from or trespass from. Stay away from
There's
them.
plenty of other slot machines to play around
There's
the
other
city,
places
so-
to go to. And Policy was publicly evicted. You had dinner with him that night that he was trespassed.
He's an interesting dude.
Yeah.
That's for sure. There was a big kerfuffle today online because there was another podcast or whatever you call it, whatever the kids call it, and they were talking about influencers and disclosure. And Starfish had mentioned that a local influencer is the manager, the social media manager of Golden Steer. He has posted a lot of content about Golden Steer. There have been other influencers that they've invited who have posted about it. And this whole subject of of disclosure and transparency, and it's just a really interesting conversation.
You're saying he should be disclosing that he's the social media manager there.
Yeah, like I don't think you get to mix it in with the rest of your content if you're a paid employee whose job is to promote this place. Like when I was at Fremont Street Experience, that was always tricky because I did Vital Vegas. I would criticize downtown casinos, but I would talk about stuff I liked. I always made it clear, like, I work there, but I also happen to love this thing at Plaza, or this, I love whatever, Pizza Rock at Downtown Grand. It's just all it was interesting because it's so murky and it feels new. And I think people they don't trust advertising anymore, so they put their trust in
Social
influencers
media.
and peer-to-peer recommendations, but I just don't know how all that is
If that's better.
going. Because in my world, I don't have to do that. So it's easy for me to go, well, I would never take money, blah, blah, blah. But these folks, they have to do it as their livelihood to do reviews and create content. And so it's a little tough for someone who doesn't have to do that hustle to judge someone who's like, you did a post and you didn't say that was a paid endorsement of a place. Because people accuse me of that all the time.
I still get
obviously,
people
but-
telling me they're all your haters, but they still write nonsense to me about paying you to be a show.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I wish I could get some of that cashy cash.
Yeah,
I'll take it in free play, whatever.
We'll
I'm going to talk about bartenders here, no matter what. I'm going to talk about things I
You
want
mean
to
even
talk
if
about.
we pay you
whether
or
I
not?
get paid or not. Yeah.
All right, so time for some of our Q&A, and you can help answer some of these questions. Can I do a shameless plug? Because he didn't let me promote any of our things going on here. We have so many exciting things happening here.
You
There is
start,
one.
then I got to plug.
And you
after
didn't
that.
talk about very much about the tweet. I'm
We'll
looking
talk about
for
your
more
tweet.
details.
There's a
Okay.
question that sort of does relate back to that
Okay, good.
that I think I saw. But we have a really exciting project here. We have a new table games section coming. I want to shout out Christian, our table games director. He's doing a great job here and convinced me about a year ago it's time to remodel the entire pit. We've remodeled so much of this property that the table games area needed it. So we're redoing the entire table games area, all new chairs, all new tables, new lighting, new TVs, new cabinets, new felts. We got the fancy tables with the inlay going into it, and still the same single zero roulette, still the same 10 times odds, craps, best blackjack games, and also on the craps table we're gonna have a special bet, 175 to 1 odds on the all tall, all small, which is what people want
What?
to see. So yeah, some pretty exciting things happening in table games. So shout out to Christian. Let's do the questions. Or you want to do a
I
plug?
got another shameless plug too.
Okay,
So
please.
in celebration of our 5-year anniversary, we're going to do a sale. So go to our website. I'm sure you'll be getting the e-blast and everything else there, right? But yeah, so at least for the next 30 days throughout the month of February and March, we'll have the on the corner of Main Street sale. So
What is the
that's
sale?
going to be going out. It's going to be up to I think 25% off.
Like a hotel room package.
Yep, anybody will be able to go on. So just look at it. But it's our initials. so
Exciting.
it's-
He can just make these decisions without you knowing about it.
He's the vice president of operations. He can do whatever
So
he
you
wants.
can
I can't
just
sell
set a-
hotel rooms.
Well,
What
but
are
you can just
talking
set a
about?
price without. Doesn't he have to That's fine.
Yeah,
Really?
fine.
That's autonomy.
I
You
just
must
learned
love
about
that.
it.
Wow.
I just learned about it right now. All right, let's do the questions.
All right. Well,
Let's
Sarah,
start
what's
with down because it's related back to that.
okay? All right. So we'll jump over. We'll start with our questions from Twitter.
And thank you
X.
to everyone that submitted questions. We just figured that we weren't going to get to them all, so Sarah whittled it down to about 8 or 9 questions, and hopefully we get to these.
Okay. So this one is from @VegasVic. Why isn't Tamaris engaging more in downtown in terms of investment? I.e., why don't you buy the downtown Grand, renovate the old Western Casino, etc.?
Scott, do you think that's a fair statement? Why isn't Tamara's engaging more downtown in terms of investments?
Well, no.
I mean, look around you. How's that fair?
Yeah, you're investing in your flagship. There has been a rumor that you would be involved when the Downtown Grand is sold to the Siegel Group, that you would manage the casino. That's not really buying anything. But it's a tricky time downtown. There's a lot of parcels for sale and not a lot of buyers. Like, it's complicated. Like those spots that you're talking about, downtown cocktail room, that has closed. The Smash Pig was closed, but they're looking for somebody. Flippin' Good Chicken closed. The donut place closed. Like all those businesses that were in that building that was purchased from Tony Hsieh's estate are in a state of flux. But there's really nobody jumping in, spending a lot of money buying those parcels. Like what's it called? Gold Spike?
Yeah.
Yeah,
What's
no
happening? Yeah,
takers.
so
Yeah.
Speaking of Tony Hsieh, just on that note, has there been any news on Life is Beautiful?
Yes, it's not happening.
not
They
happening,
killed it off.
Okay.
They might use that brand again, but you probably know more about this.
No, please.
I shouldn't answer your question.
I'm enjoying
but-
your guessing. That wasn't even a question. You just let me
I'm
answer
sorry,
the
that
Vegas
was-
Fix
No, I
question.
wanted to
That
bring
was
that
at
up
Gary
though
Vickery.
because if anybody would know, they might
Yeah.
do it again here, so you would have heard.
No,
But
the
it's site came down.
I think Life is
it's
Beautiful is
done.
finished. They might have like you just said, they might have an angle to use it in the future, but unfortunately, a very smart man said that when they lost that footprint, whenever that would happen, it didn't actually happen for the reasons everyone thought it would happen, which was development. But when they lost that footprint, the festival would lose its mojo. It wasn't made for that footprint. And as great as I thought the event was here, and it was fun for us in the Plaza, it wasn't Life is Beautiful. I think everyone would agree with that. 7,000 people at the Plaza is not the same as 25,000 people mirandering 18 blocks of downtown Las Vegas and the neon. It was a great show. We had a great time. It was good for us. It gave us a billboard of what the potential of the site could be. But yeah, Life is Beautiful probably died the day it left that footprint, and whatever becomes of it, we wish them well with it. We'll see what happens. We now have proof of a footprint that could do amazing shows.
Yeah.
And that's our angle. But can we answer Vegas Fix question? Because it seems fair.
Go for it.
We don't own the Western anymore. We can't renovate the Western because we don't own it. We did try to buy it back, but it's Tony Hsieh's estate and his family, and they're not selling it right now as far as I'm aware. Downtown Grand ship has sailed. I'm not sure what's happening with that, but you're correct. We looked at it, and it didn't move forward. But I would say in terms of investment, I can't think of anyone who's more engaging in downtown with the Plaza than us. I mean, you could obviously Circa's a new build, but in the last couple of years, if you look at the last 2 years, with our patio, the carousel bar, pink box, the table games, the couple of floors that you've
absolutely.
done, I don't know who's spending more money than us currently. Oh, Al Cortez did a great job with their remodel that they just reopened, their new section. But generally speaking, I'd say we're up there with top 2 or 3 active investors in downtown in terms of existing facilities. And to Scott's tweet, we're working on 2 food and beverage concepts. You've obviously got a very good source who gave you more information than they probably should have. But we're working on some good food and beverage, or food. We've got, the Carousel Bar, the Sand Dollar, great bars. But the food is something that we think we have an opportunity to really upsize. And if you're interested to know what that is, go to Vital Vegas on Twitter, and you can read pretty much or pretty closely to some of the things that we're working on.
Can you verify that Pop-Up Pizza, the excellent pizza place here that's kind of a pizza stand, is going to be a full-blown proper restaurant?
I wouldn't call it a full-blown restaurant. I'd call it, but it's going to be a full relocation. We are going to move Pop-Up Pizza into a new space that's going to be a more full experience. When you say full restaurant, I think of full service, sit down, waiters.
With tables and chairs and stuff.
Yes, yeah. And it's funny, there was an article just yesterday that came out about Papa Pizza still being one of the, it's now 12 years old, Papa Pizza, still being one of the best pizzerias in downtown Las Vegas, but needing a little bit more of a refresh and lively experience. And I thought, what perfect timing for Scott to have announced that it's going to be moving. So I can confirm that it will be moving.
And
Yes.
that there will be a new burger concept that will be a big step up from McDonald's, but will presumably go into the the current pop-up space at the south part of the.
South side, yep. So can't confirm that, but can confirm that that is what we're discussing. Nothing's done. So, I mean, what am I supposed to tell you? I
The
can't
Plaza
say
needs
it's
a good
happening.
burger. That's all.
But yeah, the
that's all we
Plaza
to
does
say.
need a good burger,
Yeah.
and it will have a good burger. But the one we're in discussions, and we're trying to make it happen, and hopefully that happens. So again, your information was accurate.
Thank you. And some sort of other restaurant concept that people would recognize
Yes.
will be moving into the Plaza's
Can't
sphere.
confirm that,
Oy
but
vey.
can confirm that that's the intent. We're trying. I can't tell you it's happening. If it was signed, I could say I can confirm it's happening.
Thank
but it's not a done deal.
Okay.
So that's a done deal.
Thank you.
So we are investing.
I don't want to jinx it
and we
because I
are-
love all those things that
I
are
do
being
too.
discussed. Pop-up deserves to be more visible to people walking in the building.
Yeah.
And that position, what was it called, the Bright Side Cafe or something? That's prime
the best.
prime location across from the donuts.
Yeah.
That's going to be a 1-2 of like Drunchies heaven on Fremont.
From your.
Does anybody else?
What does that mean? From your mouth to what? Yeah, exactly right. That thing. All right, keep going.
All right. So speaking about some of the things we just talked about, at OU Mitch 6565, how collaborative are downtown properties? how often are success and failure shared amongst owners and operators? If you have anything that clearly works, is it broadly shared?
This is a great question.
It's OU Mitch. Thank you for the question. He's going to say something different to me, but I'm the one who knows and he doesn't. I think we're very collaborative, and maybe that's not always been the case. Historically, I would say that wasn't the case, and maybe it's not everyone. But overall, when there's something good happening in downtown, like Plaza's Friday fireworks, which are coming back, I get texts from the other operators either saying, hey, can we help with the timing? Can we help with the promotion? Can we move it back 15 minutes to our events or this or that? That's a great example of collaborative. The Neon City Festival, great example of us being collaborative. If someone's doing something that's bringing a lot of bodies to downtown, everyone will say, hey, that's great. What can we do to help? Or hey, that's a pain in the ass. You're closing down the streets. Or what can we do to make sure that doesn't happen again? So I think we're actually very collaborative. Some more than others, but that speaks to the nature of the way we all operate our businesses. Some of us are here much more than others, or not even absent owners. So I'd say that it's a pretty good collaboration, and I think I can certainly say that anyone who doesn't realize that the betterment of downtown is good for all the individual operators is totally missing the point. Because the best thing to happen to downtown in the last 5 years was Circa.
Right.
So if I was scared or thought that was bad for us, it would be the opposite. But it's been nothing but incremental to us. So yes, there's collaborative. But to your point, when you worked at Fremont Street, it wasn't always that way, and there was definitely a bad stretch between the operators in downtown.
Yeah, I would agree with most of that. I think that festival was a great example of how everybody can kind of set aside their histories and their personal preferences. I think you could do a whole episode on like the structure of Fremont Street Experience as an entity, the history there, the animosity between not just Fremont Street Experience and non-members, but also within Fremont Street Experience. That there's a whole drama that happens there. They did this dopey sitcom down here, kind of fake sitcom, that was supposed to look like a reality show, but I wish they had just spent that $1 million on an actual reality show and followed you guys around, your interactions.
Well, I'm not on Fremont Street. I wouldn't have been in those meetings, so it wouldn't have been as good.
It should have been El Cortez. El Cortez isn't really part of the, it should be part of the conversation. And Strat, Strat is kind of its own thing. I think most people consider it part of the strip. But the stories and the personalities and the freaking, just talk to Terry Cottle for 10 minutes. So you need to have him on your podcast. He's like just an interesting dude, like old school. Mm-hmm. They are, or talk to somebody from Boyd and find out why they won't do an outdoor bar. Like those.
We had Boyd on. We had Andre, the GM of Boyd. He was a great guest. Actually.
Yeah, he needed to be asked, why don't you do an outdoor bar?
I should have asked him that.
Derek Stevens is making so much money. He would, because Boyd knows its own culture.
Yeah.
He's like, don't give people a reason any excuse to step away from their slot machine.
I don't believe in that. All right, what else you got?
Me either.
Netflix John 56736. Hoping you can reach out to Resort CEO Alex Dixon for a future interview.
It's not really a question.
But it's there.
But it's there, and I don't know Alex Dixon, so good luck in your new role at Resorts World, and we will reach out and see if you want to be a guest. You know him?
No.
No?
Okay.
I don't know.
But if somebody will, it's going to be Scott.
What is this, though?
I think you should get Jim Murin.
I was going to say, I thought Jim Murin and someone else was doing it.
This is the pivotal moment to have him on, because they're not bringing him on to do anything but sell Resorts World. That's why they've hired him. Yeah. And so now would be a great time to talk to him. And it'd be really uncomfortable, because you could ask him, like, how is Scott Sabella suddenly guilty of this thing when you were the guy who was like his boss back in the MGM days? Like, how does Scott Sabella get singled out, loses his gaming license, like the worst thing that can happen if you're in the gaming industry?
Yeah.
And now Jim Murin's coming in to be the watchdog of thing. That's crazy.
All right.
Vegas is so weird.
Moving on. BKS30 says this is from their 5-year-old Dylan. How many lights are under the dome, and how do you know when one of them goes out? So we had an internal debate after getting these questions about trying to figure out that number. We're going to say, and if it's wrong, I'll come back on the show and say it, but I'm going to say there's about 15,000.
But I know the number.
You know the number?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, go for it. What's the number?
It's 19,500.
19,000. I wasn't too far off. Okay.
That's a good little fun fact.
Yeah. Yeah, we did do a replacement of them all in different sections over time. There's no scientific way to know when they're out, but walking it and looking at it, and unfortunately, being a 53-year-old building, you get water leaks, you get other things that then cause other sections to go down. But we've done a pretty good job of maintaining them and updating them to LEDs. So 19,500. Thanks for your question, 5-year-old Dylan. I hope 5-year-old Dylan is not listening to this podcast.
Was there a water leak in the casino? Is that why you're doing a new table games area?
No.
Oh, okay.
The water leak in the casino was in 2016.
I just thought
Yeah.
if something happened, there would be a good excuse to be like, hey, we're redoing our
No,
whole...
we're doing the table games because we're doing well in tables and we're growing and we are proud of the fact that we can continue to upgrade it. And it's time. It's been 12
You're
years.
busier. Like on a typical night, they're doing half a craps table at Four Queens, and yours is busy. So
Yeah.
whatever you're doing is working.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
We got time for a couple more questions? All right. So we'll go over to Facebook. Samantha H. What's the next best thing for the Plaza? What's the next big thing for the Plaza?
The next big thing. Well, we already talked about the table games. We already talked about the investment in our new show, which you need to come back and see it because it's very good. You haven't even seen Butthoven, which is my favorite act in the show.
Butthoven.
Butthoven.
I have not seen that.
My favorite act in the show.
I liked it when I came.
Yeah, but you went to the opening night. You can't judge anything on it.
Yeah, that's what I told Amy. I'm kind of like, I need to come back because in a show like that, the acts, like, it really matters. Like when you go to Absinthe or you go to Atomic Saloon, if an act that you really liked, I think that's why Opium closed, to be honest, because in Opium, there were a couple of acts that were absolute. I cried. I told the
bubble
producer that
show.
I was crying.
In the bubble show. What did you cry in? Why
No,
you
there were a
crying?
couple of acts that were just there was a
Crying from brilliance or depression?
from brilliance.
Okay.
Like I've never seen anything like this. Oh, so the perfect example in Opium, there was a guy who was doing the bubble.
Yes.
The bubble.
Yeah, I love that guy.
Act.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you meant the girl in the bubble.
No, the guy doing
the guy with the
bubble.
bubbles.
I want to pay him to put me to sleep at night.
But then another guy took the part, and the show was not as good.
Yeah.
And so, like the overall impression of the show was like, in one case I'm crying, in the other I'm like, well, that's talent, but I'm not crying. And there were other acts that were just so remarkable, and they cycle out. So in Amy's case, she's finding new acts. She's trying to figure out how they gel and how they flow.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was there when there was like a marching band or something, so you can't really judge it.
By the way, everyone loved the marching band except for you. But anyway.
No, I thought that was great, but I'm like, that's not the show.
That's not the show, no.
Yeah, I can't.
So
I don't know how to talk about
I
this
sort of
show.
disagree with you, though. If it's a good show, the act should always be good, and the act should always flow, and the act should almost be to the point of what Amy's saying, the whole experience becomes one. And so an individual act shouldn't be able to throw you off. Like, there's an act in the show right now that I don't love, but I still leave the show feeling like that's an amazing, great show. So anyway, but what's the next big thing? So we talked about the pit, we talked about the show, we talked about the food and beverage, which is kind of my big thing right now, or food, the two new restaurants that we're building, plus moving Papa Pizza, which I guess is now public. And then I'd say the other big thing is we want to do something on that 10 acres, that vacant 10 acres. That garage, I'll give you all a hint, is in the wrong location. So if anything else happens there in the future, that it will be with a different parking garage or relocated parking garage. But that will be the next big thing at the Plaza, will be developing that 10 acres and what happens there. Because everyone sees what's happening in downtown, Symphony Park and Fremont East. And the Arts District, you know that 10 acres is now the center of all of downtown Las Vegas.
The garage is in the wrong location?
I think so. And it's also inefficient. It's got the big hole in the middle. It's just the wrong thing, yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Do you still have fire horses on that?
Fire
Didn't you
horse?
have horses from the fire or something?
Oh, yeah, we did. Yeah, well...
They're not here now?
To be honest with you, we made a very generous offer, which is if you had a horse affected by the fire in California, we would house it for free. We would feed it. We would have hay, feed, whatever the cleaning services. We had all of it. But we didn't actually have anyone bring their horses. So it was a gesture that wasn't... I just felt... I felt like I didn't really understand why hotels were doing 25% off or 30% off for people that had lost their homes. Yeah. It just felt to me like you're trying to fill your hotel occupancy.
And then dinging
still
them
make
for their
money.
cats. They were charging hundreds of dollars if
I
somebody
didn't
brought a
see
cat.
that.
Because if your house burned down, you got to bring your pet.
Right.
Well,
I
they're
just felt
coming
like
in.
if you're going to do that, you kind of need to make it free.
Give them a room.
And I didn't understand it. So when they were like, do you want to do something? And I thought, no, I don't want to charge them 25% off for losing their home. So we did bring your horse, but for free, and nobody came. So it was a worthwhile initiative.
That was a nice gesture. I remembered it. So whether it happened, if anybody took you up on it or not, I thought it was a nice gesture. There's not a lot of places, not a lot of casinos that can say, we'll take care of your horse.
Yeah,
for you."
exactly. Yeah.
But speaking of Symphony Park, Travis asked, what happened to the plans to build a bridge over the tracks at Symphony Park?
That's in the works. The city has the easement. The city's doing the permitting. The city needs to raise the money through one of their schemes that they have. I think it's the tax on gas scheme that they do. And I actually am glad they're not doing anything right now because the Elaine Wynn spearheaded museum is now happening. The Museum of Modern Art with Elaine Wynn behind it
I broke that story. Yes.
is happening
Thank
on
you.
Symphony Park. And having a bridge from that to what we will ultimately do on our land is way more sensible than just having a bridge to nowhere on both sides.
Yeah.
So now that that's happening, and maybe one day we'll have Elaine Wynn on this podcast, that would be a tremendous addition. So the city's going to do it, but it's a little ways away. And I'm happy to release on the Plaza Pod social, we can release an image of what that bridge is supposed to look like.
There was another downtown plan that got shelved. I don't remember it. Was it Derek's?
It's a great story.
He lobbied. I think Derek Stevens lobbied for an off ramp from the freeway that would dump people right in your
Yeah, on Symphony
on your
Park,
doorstep.
back there.
Yeah, and he
I don't think it was-
he actually spent money on lobbyists, and then he bought that parcel kind of right behind you that is still, I think.
Yeah, P&Q is still there. It's right here.
Yeah.
It's right behind us. But that's called P&Q on Symphony Park. And was also talk about the Neon Museum relocating to P&Q. Gary's getting nervous because time's running out and Oscars is going to open.
Don't
but-
rush. We
and-
have to be longer than Billy
Well,
Williams
no,
or
yeah.
Walters or whatever his name
No, the
is.
doors are going to be opening here pretty quickly.
All right, let's
Phil.
keep going.
Because
What
I'm
else?
hungry, so I'm
You want-
ready.
you want
to-
a
Oh,
burger?
he's just staying for free appetizer or something.
Oh,
All right.
that mac and cheese. Can I give an unsolicited endorsement? I am so mad because I've been eating here for years and nobody told me about that mac and cheese. And it was served at the dinner. It was so good. That is some of the best mac and cheese in Las Vegas.
Wow.
Anyway,
That's a
go
big-
ahead.
Come down to
Perfect.
Oscars for the mac and cheese.
There we go.
Why
Okay.
didn't they ask questions about me? You didn't phrase it.
We
as
didn't say
like,
you were gonna be the
Scott-
guest for
Oh
the
dear
5-year
God!
anniversary.
Thankfully,
We wanna
I know
surprise our
everything.
Although
guest.
this one could be about you. Go ahead.
Thank
All right, so
Two more.
Yeah, I'm going to combine these two. So Sharon B
No,
said,
don't combine it. Come on.
okay, loves the Brian Christopher Room. Any plans for collaborating with other social media influencers?
I'm with a social media influencer right
Thank
now.
you.
Here he is.
This is a collaboration.
This is a collaboration. Well, yes, we went all in with Brian Christopher. He's been a great partner to the Plaza. The smoke-free room is really a great addition to the property. To be honest with you, I'm blown away. I'm not really blown away because I think we were the pioneers of it and everyone else has jumped onto it, but I'm blown away by how big some of these other social media, social media slot players have become and the amount of engagement they get, and it's pretty amazing. So that industry is certainly evolving, and I think it's now very, very mainstream to this business, and there's no hiding. It's a part of the industry now.
And congratulations to Vegas Matt for hitting 1 million subscribers on
yeah.
YouTube. That's a huge
It's
milestone.
a big deal.
for-
And it should be noted that I heard from an employee at Durango that they're building a new slot area that they're going to make non-smoking.
Oh.
That's huge for a
Yeah.
locals casino.
Yeah.
So they
Wow.
might be, there's a chance they're looking at this room going, let's take advantage of this. So
Yeah.
they can say, it's not a non-smoking resort, but because it's bad.
You know what?
Smoking
You know
is
what?
so
We made
painful to be around.
smoking is a challenge, and we made a big mistake. Not a big mistake. We with the cards we had McDonald's there, and that's why we built the way we did. Had McDonald's left 2 years earlier, we could have actually built that all into one thing. But we built it kind of closed up because we didn't want it to connect to the food court. Now, I wish it was all one big flow through. So that McDonald's actually was a curveball we didn't expect to get.
Okay. So Chris B says, congratulations on 5 years of success. Question for Jonathan. You've clearly embraced the opportunity around social media and your efforts with the influencers, BC Slots, the CEO for a day. Was there a certain thing or revealing moment when you realized the value of embracing the opportunity that is social media?
Well, I think we've gone full circle back to why we did this podcast.
Exactly.
We've
That's why I
gone
left
full
that question
circle
for
and
Les. Thank you, Chris.
We're back with the idea of why do we do a podcast? Why did we embrace social media? And I guess it speaks to the fact that the Plaza, when I became the CEO 10 years ago, was sort of a forgotten place. It was irrelevant in many ways. And we wanted to put it back on the map. And this was actually a very cheap and effective way to do it with the podcast, befriending Scott, who hated us, and Twitter, and Las Vegas Club. Didn't you once say if Las Vegas Club was a horse, it should be taken out back and shot?
That is
Wasn't that you?
terrible. No.
Anyway.
I would never make it. I mean, the metaphor is good, but I would never make it at the expense of an animal. No, but I think the bigger question is why, because most casino companies don't get social at all. Podcasting is like such a huge leap away and from just be interesting in your social marketing. They can't even do that. So you guys have jumped. You've leapfrogged over so many steps, and by being like in the fact that you would ask someone for a question is huge because that's social. And most companies, they turn off their comments. They do not respond to people replying on, like they'll put out a tweet, they treat it like an advertisement. I just met with the guy from MGM Resorts who's like high level, and he goes, yeah, we're not doing this right.
Yeah.
And we're, same at Caesars, like we know we're a public company. You can't really empower those frontline people to just say whatever they want. So they're stuck, but they don't have the right priorities.
Well,
and they're
shout
measuring-
out to Sarah over there because
Yes,
she
Sarah.
handles all of our social media right now, and she's not shy to send over anything to the hotel team or to another team if somebody has a guest complaint, and we all collaborate and get it answered. It doesn't matter if it's on Facebook or Twitter.
But I would
Respond to it.
say to Crispy's question, is Crispy?
Yeah.
We didn't have an overarching strategy. This is a trial and error thing. No one else was really doing it. We were sort of the first ones to really engage with influencers and slots.
Right.
Taking that a step further with the day in the life video on YouTube or even the podcast. You try things, you might fail, you might hit it out of the park, but we weren't afraid to take those risks. And when they land, and I think it's a testament to the culture and the company, is the fact that we're having fun and we're just doing what we would be doing anyway. So like the guy following me around, it really was my day. We didn't script that. That was just him following me around, and it translates to people seeing the inner workings of a casino, and people like that. And Vegas is a fascinating place, as you said. We're very lucky to live here. That's fascinating industries, people, and it's easy to tell that story.
So how are you with photography and videography in your casino?
Sarah?
Are they touchy about it, or?
How are we with photography and videography in the casino? I think we're very good.
Because with influencers,
Come on in, Sarah. Come on.
Well,
Come on
it's a two-part question. If they have permission, we're very flexible. If they just come in and they start filming, there's a separate question to that. It's not as easy. You have to get permission unless you're already on Sarah's permanent list, because you don't want to come in and explain your answer, Sarah? No, she's shy.
Oh,
away.
she's
Okay.
shy.
She would do it if it was just a podcast, but now that
Right.
there's
No, the
cameras.
cameras, yeah. So if you get permission, which is very easy to get, you go on social media, you email, whatever it is, then you can film. There is still an element in this that people don't want to be filmed outwardly. If they're there to gamble, they don't want to be on someone else's video or camera. So I understand that, and you have to respect that privacy.
Do you?
You should.
Because it's private property, and it's not. Because on the street, there's no expectation of privacy, and I don't think if you're in a mall and you're doing video of somebody, they don't get to say whether you do video of it. It's only casinos that seem sensitive about it. And I always thought it was cheating related, and then I realized the cheating what involved mistresses. So that's the confidentiality they want to preserve. But casinos have different policies because everyone has a phone now and everyone has a camera. So many have loosened up. You got Four Queens has a freaking sign up there that says we encourage photography. Don't shoot the cage and be polite to
Yeah.
people. But the casino is not responsible for you not being photographed with your mistress.
No,
That's
but
not our
I
thing.
so I understand what you're saying. I just think as an operator, I would want people to feel comfortable to do whatever they want to do here. And so if you're filming, I'm fine with that. But don't walk around the table games filming all the people that are in there. Film whatever you're trying to film. If you want to film the rules, if you want to film your hand, if you want to film your slot machine, go for it. you don't need to impose that on someone else. I guess it's kind of my philosophy on society, which is you do what you want to do, don't make it somebody else's problem.
You want to hear a great quick story?
Can you be done after that?
That has to do with this? This is a good one.
Okay.
So somebody sends me a picture of Sisolak getting a hand pay at a Stations casino in my neighborhood. They send me a picture of this.
For those knowing, Steve Sisolak, the former governor of
former
Nevada.
governor. This guy sends me the picture. I tweet it. I get contacted by Stations. Station says, our VIP players saw your tweet, and we've gotten several inquiries because they don't feel comfortable gambling here now because apparently you have a mole in our casino taking pictures of people, and they don't feel comfortable gambling here, blah, blah, blah. Is there any way, blah, blah, blah. And I go, well, you know, he's a public figure. There's no expectation of privacy, blah, blah, blah.
You deleted it?
Huh?
Did you delete it?
The best part is yet to come. The guy goes, well, we know who took the picture because our surveillance team figured out the trajectory of this photograph and could see where the person was sitting. And because the Players Club card was in the machine, we know who took that photo. And we would hate to have anything, you know.
Wow.
I'm like, oh my God. So I took it down because they could 86 this poor person who's just taking a picture to send me on Twitter. Like that was an interesting twist that I did not expect. Like,
But you didn't share the story on your Twitter.
I shared it at first, but I didn't share the story of this is an exclusive for this podcast.
If you made it all the way to the end of this
Yeah, right.
episode, thank you for listening, and you got an exclusive from Mr. Scott Urban. Scott, thank you for joining us for our 5th anniversary episode.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you to Lisa for being an original member. Thank you to Jump Force for now taking us into the next generation of podcasts.
Lisa deserves props
Fancy cameras.
because she's still working at Fountain.
And she's still at Fountain.
How is that
thriving
possible?
and thriving.
Oh my goodness.
All right.
We
Thank
didn't
you,
even get to
everyone.
talk about anything juicy. I guess that'll be the 6th appearance. Thank you guys for having me on.
You a fan of On the Corner of Main Street? You're listening, so we'll assume that's a yes. So share the love, rate, review, and tell a friend to subscribe. Also, follow us on Twitter and Instagram @PlazaPod, on Facebook, Plaza Podcast, and feel free to write to the man himself @Jonathan Jossel. We'll see you next time, right here on the corner of Main Street.